Hello and welcome to my live video broadcast for Python. Today I'm going to be talking about the front controller pattern in Python. It's a really cool topic, so I'm hoping everyone will enjoy this. I've had a few stop starts trying to get back into doing making videos again. I have made quite a lot of videos, especially about frameworks and making APIs and mostly web development in Python. This is not really any different, but I've learned a lot of new stuff, especially about the using design patterns in Python. So I'm really hoping that this can be useful for other people, as it has been for me. This is not so much for people who are looking to build applications, web applications, because I think there's a lot of things you can use alternatively to this, like Django or Flask or pretty much anything. This is more for people who are interested in creating software for web development, or people who prefer to roll their own frameworks or their own designs. This is something that I came across when I was looking through it's just a software development book. I came across the front controller. I think people who use like Java, it might be more familiar to them, but for people who don't really use Java, this might be quite a new concept or quite a new idea. Hello, Cast. Is it Cast? Cased? Sorry. Let me see. Yeah, so I'm just gonna really briefly explain what the front controller is. You can, if you just read the first line here, you can probably see, but even from the first line, it kind of fills you with optimism about how simple it is to implement like a web application in Python, how easy it would be to implement this. So the front controller is obviously a software design pattern. It is a control that handles all requests for a website, which is useful structure for web application developers to achieve the flexibility and reuse without code redundancy. Yeah, this is a key thing, the code redundancy problem. So the front controller is kind of like a framework. When you make it, it's something that can be used over and over again. So if you can kind of mold it or model it to your own idea about what like a framework should do or what it should be. It doesn't have to follow anything like what you see in Django. It can only be, you can use it for just what you want to use it for, which is really cool. So I'm going to just look at an example quickly. This is from let me have a look if I can find it. Maybe there's not an example on this one. Well, there's an example from Java, but this one's not very clear unless you actually like program in Java. It's not really very helpful. I made a kind of example on my GitHub. I think there's a link to it on my page, Python design patterns. But if you go to the front controller pattern, I just kind of laid out a very simple idea about how, like, this is not necessarily about web design, but it's just a very simple pattern. So if we can take a look at this one first as an example, which we look at first. I guess we start with the front controller. Okay, so just to walk through, so this is the front controller class, and there's a dispatcher. So that's really the only thing you're using. So the front controller doesn't like do all of the dispatching. So usually in a web application, you have like, you receive a request, and then you dispatch out to different views, or you dispatch out to different like pages or whatever you're sending back to the user or to the client. But the dispatcher is the one that actually does that work in the front controller. The front controller is mainly for doing things like authentication or logging or tracking requests, like whatever is like at the application level, things that you want to do first before you send it on. Everything's done in the front controller, and then it sends it on through through one of the methods. It will send it on to the dispatcher, and then the dispatcher will then send it on to wherever else it needs to go. So this is just an example. This obviously, as you can see here, is just an example. So it's just showing like is authenticated, and then it just authenticates the user anyway. And then you can use this method down here before you send it onto the dispatcher. If it's authenticated, then you can send it onto the dispatcher. If not, then you just send back a user is not authenticated or some other kind of response. So if we go back to the dispatcher so we can see what's going on there. So inside the dispatcher, there are two views which are actually inside this dispatcher. It's probably not the best way. This wouldn't be the best way to do with a web application, because you'd want to keep things more take out the code redundancy, or you want to take out the reusability. Like this wouldn't make it very reusable, because then you'd have to keep changing this. So you'd want something that you'd want to input into this, like routes or something that you can change frequently. And then so this one will just decide from the request that is sent in through the front controller, and then if the request is equal to student, then it will send back this view, and if it's equal to home, then it will send back the home view, else it will send back like a page not found. So it's just simple. Obviously this is not detailed. So if we go back to the views, if you have a look at the views, how that works. So the views uses a abstract class of view, which you could then use different methods on, but this uses a show method to show the contents of the page. Usually you could send back the contents of a page. Like if you had an HTML page, then you could send back the template, or you could send back something different to this, but this is just printing out obviously to the screen, to the console. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the view. The view is pretty simple. It's not too complicated. Obviously, it's just sending back one thing, or it's not even sending back, it's just putting. Yeah, I use some frameworks. I kind of got sick of using frameworks, to be honest. Like I enjoy making web applications, but I find that when I use a lot of different frameworks like Django or even Flask not so much, but Django especially, I feel like I spend most of my time just looking through documentation, which is great because Django's got loads of documentation, but I just feel like it's not really programming. Like it doesn't feel like coding it just feels like you're just constantly like looking through documentation, trying to find out how you should do this in the Django way, when really like doing something like this, like if you build your own front controller, just this simple thing, you are free to do whatever you want. Like you can code anything you want and there's no limit. But I just feel like the frameworks these days especially, they're just endlessly, like you're just tying yourself to these frameworks. Like people just, like companies like tie themselves to Django or to Flask or whatever they're using, and then you just end up like relying completely on that framework to fulfill your needs, when really you should just be able to do whatever you want. Like you should be programming your own frameworks to be doing something that you want them to do, not specific to your company or whatever you're making. I read some really good talks recently that talk a lot about if you look at like a Flask application or a Django application, it's just, that's what it is. It's a Flask application or a Django application. Like you look at the front of the page, the front, when you open up the folder, the first thing you see is, oh wow, this is Django. If people are not familiar with Django, like then you wouldn't even know where to start with it. But with the front controller, for example, is you would take a look at it and you'd just be like, this is like this is for like a quiz app, or this is for a student app or something. So anyway, I don't really want to. I'm not very good at renting, so I'm just gonna kind of I'll just get down to the coding. So I just wanted to overview the front controller a little bit, just to show a simple idea of it, and then obviously I can actually do a little bit of coding. This is live coding, obviously, so if I probably make a lot of mistakes, or most likely. Someone just sent me a link. What's this link? Streamer's guide. Okay. So if this is your first time using Python, or if you're not very familiar with Python, it's probably not going to be it's going to be a bit of a kick in the nuts, I think. But this is just I'm just setting up a very simple application for this, and I'm going to be using, I'm not going to use any third-party things or anything in this. So I'm going to be using Python 3 for this. So anyone that's like a Python 2 advocate, I've had a few on my channel before who, say, Python 2 is best or whatever, but I'm going to be using Python 3, but I'm always looking to make things backwards compatible. So anything that I do in here will be compatible with Python 2. So so I'm just going to set up a virtual environment to start off with. Actually, it's staying Python 3 and BNB. So the application I'm going to make today is going to be a simple kind of student viewer, because I'm actually a teacher I'm a full-time teacher. So this is something that I might use in my school. So I'm going to create like a student viewer that shows like their like students' grades, or like things that you can, like things that they've done, or even things that they can update, like a blog or something like that. So I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be yet, but that's the good thing about the front controller, is that I don't have to decide right now. I can just develop it as I go along and add the features that I want. So yes, let's get started. So I'm inside the virtual environment now, so I'm just going to run the shell, make sure it's good to go. So I'm going to use Sublime Text. I like Sublime Text. That's my go-to text editor. Who else uses Sublime Text? I wish I could use command line editors like Vim or something, but I'm absolutely useless at remembering commands, so it's not very useful for me. It has such a scatterbrain. Okay, so the first thing I want to set up in here is the actual front controller itself. So I'm just going to call this front controller. So this is for a web application, so there's going to be quite a few new things in here. So if you have any questions, just bring it out. Actually, I'm going to do the routes in here. So you might see some things that are going to be different. So the routes are going to be, let's do them as, I'm not sure, let me see. Let's do it as none first. And just pass this for now. Obviously I need to create the dispatcher first, so after this, so I'm just leaving that testing that for now until I create the dispatcher. Oh, okay. Okay, so this is to just start off with, I need to make this front controller. I need to make it WSGI compliant. It's the interface for Python for working with between the application and a WSGI server. So just to show, like, first, when you call the front controller itself is going to be like an application, like a WSGI application, and then it will use this call method and then send back a response using like the WSGI interface. So there's a few things that you need to put in here first. The status code, which is going to just be a 200 OK, and then some response headers. I've talked a lot about this in my past videos, so hopefully if you've seen any of those, you might already be familiar with this. If not, then you can just search WSGI pep333. Actually, I'll just put up here. Is compliant. So if you want to know mostly anything about WSGI, if you just search pep333, it will come up with there's a Python page that will just tell you all about what it actually is and how you can implement it in applications. So the content type is going to be text, HTML, and you're just going to use this callback start response, and then put the status and the response headers. Okay, so this is now pretty much, this is a WSGI application in itself, so it's pretty cool. That's done. So the next thing I need is some kind of a server. Actually, just before I do this, I'm gonna get back an application from the application. I need to make a variable. So this is an instance of front controller. I need to call that first. Oops. I always use the this simple server, the WSGI ref simple server. It's not, you shouldn't use this in deployment or anything, but it's just for testing because it's quite lightweight and it's easy to just fire up quickly. So if I was using this in some kind of a development, if I was making this for a development thing, I would probably use something like a Waitress or Unicorn. But as I'm not, this is for demonstration. Host equals 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and port is let's do 900. I don't know what I've got going on in any of my other ports, so I'll just put it there for now. Print serving on port 900. Okay, so that's the server done. So right now this is everything for just basic just getting started, like so that you can just make sure everything's working. I always like to kind of do things step by step and then make sure at each step everything's working. Kind of this purpose of having tests and things, but I have been learning more about tests, but I'm not great at doing tests, so I don't want to embarrass myself in front of everyone trying to do tests and stuff. So let's run this. Okay, we're missing something there. Let me see. Oh, that's because this should be an integer. Okay, so serving on port 900. So let's look at port 900 and localhost. Looks like I've done something recently, and we've got our hello world. So this hello world here, usually when you send back something to the server, just plain text, it usually would come up looking like this, just plain text. But this is actually HTML. So if we actually look at the response, the response network. Let me see. So I'll just run this one more time because it's still running. So if you take a look at the actual headers of this, because we set the headers, we've got the 200 OK, and we've got the text type is HTML. So that means that if you change this to I'll just give an example, like a 400 not found. Yeah, so I think it's 2 words. And text plain. And I'm just gonna use a h1 tag. Just say 404 not found. So if I restart the server and then go back to my thing, oh, see what's happened there? So this one's because I was using HTML, and obviously you see everything's turned red here. Oh, where's it gone? Network. Yeah, everything's turned red. So if we took a look at the actual response, so it says 404 not found, which is what the message we sent, and then you're using plain text, which means that this is not rendering as HTML because this is plain text. So yeah, so obviously playing with this, obviously you need to make sure that these things are actually set properly. I think I'm just going to check the content type because I'm not sure if this sets the content type. Let me have a look. Yeah, so even the content length is, I think, set by the actual server itself, so it's not 100% needed, but you should, by convention, you really should at application level set the content length yourself. And if the content length is set, then it will just it will use the one from the application. If not, then the server will interpret its own content length. So I'm just going to put this, and also this message here, like a 404 is like the status code, and then not found is the message. So if you change this to something else, like where am I? I'm going to change this to HTML just to show. It's probably not the best way to be doing this, but I'm just. Okay, so we got a 404 again, but this time it gives back the different status code message. Where am I? Yeah, but as you notice, the text HTML has changed, so now it's interpreting this as the browser is interpreting this as HTML. So now it actually displays it as HTML. So yeah, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, I just wanted to show that quickly, just to show that what you put in here does actually make a difference to what comes out. So 200 OK is to say that everything is a-okay, and then go back to something. Hello world. Yeah, so this in essence here is the application itself. Like the response is very, very minimal, this is the very basic response, and this is what you'd be sending back to the server. So it's pretty cool. But this is not at this moment in time very reusable, which is what the front controller should be. So what we should do is create something. Let me see. Yeah, we're gonna create like a response class. And the response class is pretty much going to do what this application is. It's going to be its own kind of like mini application, or it's going to at least send back this information like necessary. So we inside the response class, we just want like a status, headers, and some kind of like a body. So that's like minimal things. So cells. Keep things as small as possible. Okay. So the headers equal. Just copy and paste this. Don't typo that out again. And yeah, I think that's pretty much mostly it. So response, so self.headers. Okay, so when this is called, let's get that back. We want to get this part here. So this is going to call this start response here, but obviously our status here, our status is now self.status, so I just need to change that to self. And response headers is now just headers, so self.headers. And I don't want to keep sending back hello world, so I want this to be changed by the application. I want the application to change this, so I'm going to create a for now just I'm going to create an empty list. And there's going to have to be some kind of method later for writing to this. But I'm just going to pass this because this is important to get right. So if you notice here, this is a byte string. And so when I put anything inside this list here that's going to be sent back through the body, this needs to be encoded as bytes. So I'm just going to just send back the body, but the body has nothing in it right now, so let me have a look. There's kind of a few things like encoding things that you need to take into account here, so I'm just hanging off trying to do this for a second. Just I don't want to make anything confusing at this moment, so trying to find a good like a solution. Maybe let's just use an encoding. So we use the UTF encoding. So default character set is going to be UTF-8. If you're unfamiliar with these terms like a char set or content type or anything, then it's a good idea to just check out a little bit about HTTP requests. You don't need to know like every single thing, but most basically, like these are the most the most basic things that you should know what they are at least. I'm gonna put also a content type one here. And we're gonna make a default for this as well. Default is gonna be well, text HTML is mostly what we're gonna end up sending back. So okay, so what I'm gonna do next is in this write is I'm just going to use this default char set to encode the text. So byte string equals text equals bytes. Oh yeah, just a quick word about this. So obviously, if you're actually using Python 2, you don't need to do this. Or if we're going to make this compatible with Python 2, then you can just almost skip this. You can just check to see either this is Python 2, or you can just do a quick instance check to see if the string is actually bytes. Because if it's already bytes, then you don't need to bother doing this, turning bytes into bytes. But probably it's a good idea to check it anyway. Isn't it? Is the instance of the text is bytes or not? That's better, isn't it? Then do some encoding. So this is going to be text dot I might need to check out because I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work yet. So okay, let's just use text, otherwise we're going to run into an issue with when I return this. So I'm going to test this out first. It's bound to have some kind of error, so I don't want to be too confident. Let's use response here. So I should better write something here. Response write. And so on here, I only need to return the actual instance response in this case. So I'm just going to send that baby back. If this doesn't work, obviously I'm going to have to do a little bit of investigating, but I think maybe... Oh yeah, damn it. Okay, what have we got here? So name, default. Okay, so first problem. Okay, I didn't use self there. That's problem number 1. Okay, so debug that. Okay, still not working. So we've got none type here. So I think this is going to be to do with the response object is not iterable. Okay, get to the bottom of this. It's a long one. Yeah, I think this is to do with the bytes. I'm not. Hang on, just I'm just going to test something out first. Back to here. So if I turn this into a byte string, it shouldn't be a problem, because if I know that's the problem, then I can just... Okay, is that a problem? Ah, okay. Sorry. And I can see what's happening. I shouldn't have put this inside a... This shouldn't be inside another list. Okay, but it's still doing it. I'm just going to take a quick look at kind of a past one that I've made, because this is an issue that I've come up with before. So just like I said, I'm not very good at memorizing things, so I often forget how I actually like tackle problems, some problems. Okay, what have I got here? Yeah, so I think like I'm just looking at the example that I've done before, so everything was pretty much same. I can't really see anything different that I did before. Let me see. So I'm taking the text, just appending that with the text encoding. Like I said, because I'm doing this as live coding, when there's some issue, it might be more, it's a little bit, sometimes it's a complex thing I can't really like debug in front of everybody. So let me just see. It's quite nerve-wracking. Okay, so definitely I'm sending back the response, so here definitely need to return the response object that I'm doing. Do I need to... okay. I think I might have done this. I think I might know what's wrong with this. I think I need to send that through. I think that's what the issue is there. Okay, well at least that's one thing. So the environs are spelling issues, which I have a lot of. Okay, one more time. Okay, finally. Thank you for bearing with me with that one. So this is the front controller. So at least like we're a little bit closer to kind of separating things out now. So we now have like a response object. So this is just going to go through, encode everything. We have nothing for setting the char set yet, but obviously it's all stuff that you can either use something like WebOb, which is a WebOb is very useful because it actually deals with all this stuff for you, which I highly recommend using. But the reason I'm not using it here is just because I kind of want to show, like, funnily enough, to show how it works, but I don't know if I'm doing a very good job. But here, like WebOb is very useful for creating objects that deal with HTTP requests, and then creates an HTTP response. And then it deals with all of the things like making headers, passing the requests like headers, and pretty much mostly all the annoying stuff that is deal with making, like when you just want to get on with making an application. WebOb will actually sort all that stuff out. So I'm just gonna put that here. Like I say, I'm not going to be using WebOb. Main reason is just I just want to kind of show more the front controller aspect of things, not the like how to make an application necessarily. So yeah, so this is done here now. So the next thing, although I say I'm not going to use WebOb, I think I am going to use the request of the WebOb. So just give me 1 second. I don't want to pass request. Make a request class. Like it's okay response, but the request is a little bit too icky for me. So I'm just gonna pip install WebOb on here, and that's that. So from WebOb import requests. This is just a class, an object, class object or request, and the only thing it takes in is the environment variable, environment dictionary here, which is from the WSGI server. It's just a collection of, it's just a dictionary that contains all like the headers, HTTP headers, and like a few other server variables and stuff. So yeah, so the request, if I just show what this does, so if I do the request dot method and request dot pep this time, I'm doing dope. Yeah, so this is here. This is, it's already passed all of the the request headers. Actually, it didn't even need to pass them. Like the WSGI server already passed all of the headers. It puts into the dictionary, and then the WebOb then puts these into like objects, like things that you can actually use as an object. So the Python objects makes it a lot easier to use. So that's that part. So the next thing, if you take a look at the specification, hang on, let me see. I was looking for this one. This one I was looking for. So if we take a look at the front controller, see what we've done so far. So we need a dispatch. So this is the kind of request that's coming in, and we need some way to dispatch this or deal with this. Instead of using the dispatch request, we're using the call method here, so that it's actually a callable application, which is co. And then we need a dispatcher. So let's make a new file for this one. So we're going to call this class dispatcher. Probably in like web programming, this might be better. Do I have? Oh, sorry. Do I have 2 years experience? Is it because I'm not very good? Is that like a, do you really have 2 years experience, or is it more like a, wow, do you have 2 years experience? Sorry, I'm just reading the chat list here. I do have 2 years. It's probably just under 2 years experience, but I'm self-taught, so everything I've learned I've had to kind of model through myself. So I wouldn't say that I'm the gleaming standard light of Python programming, but okay. So what we're going to do here with this dispatcher is we're going to use a dispatch method to take in the request and the response from the front controller. So we're going to pass that in I might do that now just to show. But these have to return. This has to return the response itself, like the actual response that we get here. It needs to return this back again. So that's the only requirement of the dispatcher. Is it'll do something. The views will manipulate the response in some way, like add something to it, and then it will send it back to the front controller, and then the front controller will send it onto the server. So let's do that one. Dispatcher equals, oh, no, yep, nope, yep. Let's do that here. Self.dispatcher equals dispatcher, and then this is going to take in our routes, but we don't have any routes right now, so this is going to be none right now because we're not doing anything with it. Let's add something to the response just so we know that it's gone through the dispatcher. I'm just going to write something to the stream. And then call the dispatch method, pass in the request. Make sure it's in the right same order that you actually put it in. Otherwise you end up with the request, request response. I always tend to do this order, but recently I started using Go as well. Like I started learning a little bit about Go, but they always put the response first and then the request, so it's a little bit confusing. Okay, so the response is going to, new response is going to be the one. So this is the response, the initial response. We probably could give it a different name, but yeah, let's give it a different name. Let's call it resp for now. Just to differentiate. And then, so that obviously when you, the new response is going to be sent back from the dispatcher, and taking in the request and the response from here. It'll do something with this in here, like whatever we want to do. I'm going to keep it as simple as I can, and then send that back to the server. So hopefully, I'm going to have to get that from here though. Have to actually import that first. Okay, so we've got this is the front controller, and then it's gone through the dispatcher, and there seems to be no problem, so it seems like everything's going pretty well so far. Just to show that this actually is coming back after the dispatcher, so we'll do another write, just to show where this is going and what this is doing. It's quite useful just for debugging. Returned from dispatcher. Have to restart the server again. Boink. Yeah, so as you can see here, so it's gone through the front controller, goes through the dispatcher, and then the response returned from dispatcher. So yeah, pretty cool. So we take a look at this. Yeah, so all of these methods here, we can talk about those later. There's not very much point setting any of this stuff up right now because we have nothing to work with. But when you actually, I probably, even for this front controller, like you can create this as I would use this as a subclass, like you can have different controllers, like different application controllers for different applications, but you subclass the main, if you create like a new subclass of this, and then you can use like the call method, the main, everything you've implemented here, but then you can add additional things like additional methods. Then you can include them inside or you can create a new call response. Pretty much you'd end up creating a new object, but anyway, like just if there are things that you want to inherit from here, then you could just create a subclass of front controller and then create a new controller that is specific to an application, but then it kind of eliminates the point of having code redundancy and stuff. So yes. Okay, so what are we up to? So we've got a response. So it's going through here, just returning this back. So it's kind of not amazingly useful right now. So let's make this a bit more dynamic. So the reason for passing the request in here is so that you can actually send back the thing that you want to send back. So what we want to send back is some kind of view. Let's do a views.py. Actually, let's make this as a... We're going to make this an abstract method for now. So the reason for making this as like a kind of interface is so that it's going to have to like whatever view you make. So if you make a kind of a view for, a student view, which is kind of what I'm going to be making for this example application. If I was making like a student view, then I'd obviously need to implement this interface, which would then make sure that I always had a view method, and the view method can then be used as something that the dispatcher can always know that it can call in order to get the proper response back. This is very useful for designing things later, like reusable things. So let's just do a student class. View. And I'm actually going to do an example of how that might be work. I wouldn't usually put this inside this view, so I'm using this right now like just to show this, but I would keep anything to do with the application, like an actual specific application. I wouldn't put this in here, but just because I'm just demonstrating this, I'm going to put all of the views together. But all of this stuff would be likely in a different, like in its own module. And then you'd call the stuff from your to your application when you're actually creating your application. So student view is just going to be passed back to the dispatcher plus from views import student view self dot student view student view. So if response, if request dot path is equal to student, I think there's going to be a dash there, so I need to check that. If it's request student, then student dot view. So it's just calling this method here, the student view. Obviously, I need to do that stuff. So this is not going to send anything back through the response, but it's just to show that like it's going to call this method, but we're going to see what happens because of this interface that we've set up here. This screen is too small for all of this stuff. Let me have a look. So just call that quickly. So nothing's really changed here. Everything's just gone through. I think I'm gonna have to actually check the... I need to change this to student. Yeah, so nothing's happened actually. So I need to change this to student. And we've got an error. Why have we got an error? Let's see, it takes one. because we have no student view. Okay, so let's take this out for now. Let's just write student view on here. It wasn't that though I wanted to show. That was it's this part that should, when it shouldn't initialize that. Okay, let's see. Okay. So this is the front controller, this is dispatcher, this is supposed to be a student view, and then there's a response return from the dispatcher. And nothing's really happened. So this is not doing what I thought it was going to do. So I'm just going to forget about that. I thought it was going to do something else, but it kind of didn't, so it's okay. Self-dot response equals response. For a sec. So we shouldn't call this actual method here. I mean, we shouldn't initiate it here. We should actually initiate it here. So this takes in the request and the response. And then call it. Yeah, this is going to have to actually return this though, so I'm just going to make sure that that comes back. Let me go back to the view. Return self.response. Yeah, this, because everything's like the response is just being passed around. The response and the request are actually being passed around, but obviously the request itself is only useful to the application. The response is the only thing that actually needs to finally come back. So this is why the response is being passed around here. So here, I'm just going to call this resp, just to make sure that actually has a different name to this response here. Okay, so let's just test this out. Let me see what's going on. Okay, we got an error. We got an error. Okay, what's it saying? Something about writing. Response, response, extra, I think it's in the views, isn't it? Let's see what's going down. Self.response. Is this a spelling error? It says there's no attribute. I did the exact thing that I talked about earlier. I told you I keep like flipping. You need to make sure these two are not flipped around. So you need to make sure if you've got request response, they need to stick with the request and response. Otherwise, you end up calling the wrong thinking it's a method, but thinking it's request, but actually it's response, and so forth. So let's test that out. Okay, so this time we're actually getting something back, which is, in this case, this is the actual student view, which is cool. So we're getting a little bit more. Let's do this H1. I don't know why I'm doing this H1. I think it's just so you can see more clearly what it's doing. Okay, so we're getting out of here a little bit. I think, again, like this part here, I don't like this being in here, so I'm probably later going to take this, because obviously we don't want to keep doing this for every single view. Like if I make a home view or a login view or whatever type of view, I don't want to keep like doing this here, like a self response and then calling here. So I just want to make one view and then inherit the behavior from that one view. So I'm going to call this base view. And even now I'm not calling this view. I'm actually going to take this away for now. I don't think it's not useful right at this moment, so I'm just I used this in the when I did an example, but because I'm using the call method for the web application, it just seems a bit pointless to even use an interface for that specifically, unless like later you might need to use it for like if there's something specific that you want each view to call, like something that you want them, like methods that they need to have. But yeah, it's not necessary for this one, so just do a new class view. Oh, I'm just got object, isn't it? Request response. Why didn't just do that first? We can take that out, and hopefully this should still work. Have a look. Yes, okay, so there's no problem there. So it's just inheriting from the view rather than just keep doing this. Like every view would use this. Every view that inherits will use this this response and this request object, which is cool. But this is not very clean. Using this define call is not going to help us later, because obviously we want to make sure that we can respond to like post requests and get requests and things like that. So this is just a temporary solution for now, just like while we're looking through. So the next thing to look at would be to just take out some of this stuff so we can actually know what we're dealing with. Okay, so right now there's not really any way to change this to anything like a. So at the moment, like if the request path is student, and then it will send back this specific student view. But if the request path isn't student, and we want to be able to create some kind of like an error, like a 404 error. At the moment we have nada for doing that, so this would be more useful as one of our views. Okay, but what we're going to find out is that we don't really have a method for changing any of this, like the status code or anything. Like you could directly change the status code, but I think it's better to have some kind of method here. Oh, there we go. So we need a code and we need a message. Actually, let's use format for this. Jump. Jump. Okay, so let's use that for now. Change that name to error view. And actually, I'm not gonna put that in there because I don't want to set that actually. Let's change this around a little bit. We want this to be reusable, so it's better to keep it reusable, and then some kind of message here. And obviously we need to send back the response. Return response. So already you can see kind of some redundancy being created here, so we need to sort that out before we actually. Oh, what did I do? Where's dispatcher? Dot error view. Pass in the request response, and we need to call this, but we need to actually say what we need, which is not found. And then the message is going to be this. Could be anything. This is just what's going to actually be displayed on the page. Boink. Let's try this. Okay, I deleted a lot of stuff from here. So this is the student view. Oh, sorry, the student path is being dealt with right now. So that's all pretty much straightforward. But if we go to pretty much anything else, oh, that's not. Sorry, we have no self.error view. We're not going to be doing things like this in the future. Just I'm only doing this to show like how this is used in the generic kind of front controller pattern. But oh, I've done something wrong again. Yep. What did I do? Oh. Naming. Okay, that's not that one. Okay, what we got? Takes 2 arguments, but 3 were given. Takes 2 arguments, but 3 were given. What did I do in the response? Yes. Okay, so if we actually check this should be a 404. Actually 404. We check the. Yes, it is 404, so that's good. so what should we do next? Yeah, so that's kind of the basics of making sure that, like, you know, page is actually sending back what you want them to send back. So we go back to the student view. You actually say this is the actual student view. I'm going to take away this is dispatcher one just quickly, because obviously just for when we're just testing, seeing, you know, what sends back what. It was quite useful, but now it seems a bit redundant. So okay, 404 not found. So yeah, that's pretty much like these two. These are the only things being handled right now. Just only the student view, and then if anything else, like any other kind of, there's no root on this. So if you just wanted to handle the root, and the root is the student view, then you just change that to this. Just handling the slash backslash, and then take a look. Yeah, so this is the root now, and that's pretty much done. But it's already getting pretty ugly, so I'm gonna keep the error view in here for now, but the student view I want to take out of here. And I want to put this somewhere in app.py. So this is going to be a completely different. The app.py is actually going to be the application itself. So I'm going to show how you would then use this to create an actual application. So right now, this is just sending back like whatever we tell. Like this is not the framework. This is not the framework, so it's at the moment the framework itself is becoming an application, and it can only do one job, and that's send back this response, the student view response. So I don't want, like, people, or you don't want that, and people don't want that. So an actual framework should handle very generic things, and then the app itself is going to do the actual work. So let me take a few things out. So the front controller is the first thing I need to take out. I mean this part of the front controller, and put this in my app. So from front controller import controller, so app equals So the second thing I need to do is start to look at creating some kind of routing system. And in my server, I just need to change this to returning the app. Okay, so obviously I'm just doing a bit of refactoring here. So now everything that's not part of the application is going to be taken out. This dispatcher needs to be cleaned up, because I don't want this to be only sending back if there's a slash only sending back the student view. So this is not helpful for, you know, making our application reusable. So I'm just going to run this, make sure, nope, it's not running. Let me see. Okay, that's to do with my dispatcher, isn't it? Okay, I'm just gonna have to delete this for now, and just only send back a 404. So there's only errors. It's only gonna send back errors at the moment, which is okay. That one. Okay. check this out. Nothing. Okay, still. What did you say? Dispatcher. Application. This problem when you just refactor everything is that you end up with loads of things that you need to change. Okay. Yes, that's working. That's working now. Okay, so now this is our application. This is like everything that we need to worry about as an application developer. It's just only what goes on in here. We don't need to necessarily worry about what goes on in here. Although as a front end, as right now we're kind of being a software developer and being a application developer, so we can kind of be doing both jobs. Okay, so I think we're gonna have to handle this a little bit differently. So our dispatcher is kind of going to be like a router. It's just going to route it's going to accept a list of routes that are available, and then it's going to use these to dispense which view needs to be, or to to present the view that needs to be presented. So we just need a way to add the routes manually. And in here, it'd be better to do some kind of checking or something to make sure that what's actually coming in can either be like a class of something. For now, we're just going to use tuples just to keep it simple. So the tuple is going to be, we need to check this actually a tuple. Instance route is a tuple. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's just going to set this. It's only going to append to this route like a acceptable route if it's actually a tuple. The tuple can just be like a list of. It can have the view, and then it can have the template of the URL, like which template URL you're looking for. Okay, so that's that one. I'm just trying to figure out which one's going to have to deal with this. Okay, let's just create a route, and then we can test it out and see what comes back. So what actually happens. So a typical route might look something. We're going to use regex, regular expressions, to deal with these. Okay, so this is an example. So this is just the beginning of a string. This is the end of a string, and we're just looking at the backslash, which is the root directory of the URL. So if this is the what comes up, then if this is the request path, and this is what this student view is what will be sent back. And we just need to include that inside the front controller. So if you take a look at front controller, at the moment routes is none. So it's going to go, okay, we're going to have to make sure we deal with that first though. Let's see. In the dispatcher, if routes is not none. That's okay. That seems okay. And so we just need a way in the dispatcher to actually send back to actually identify that that's the correct route. So let's do do that one first. So the inside the route, so for route in self dot routes, we're gonna have to import Ori. So index 0 is going to be the actual the path that we're looking for, the request path. So I'm just going to create a compiled regular expression, and then we can do if regex dot match with the request dot path. Then we can send back the view. Which is going to be a position 1. Again, like this is not going to be pretty, so just I'm doing it with a tuple right now, but it's much better to do this with an object, with a class route. But obviously it's small work, so I just want to show this more simply first. Quickly first. So we need to, so the route 1 is going to be a view, which is actually this view. But we need to first initialize it. So we need to initialize it with the request and the response. And then we need to actually call it. Actually, it's going to be a response, isn't it? It's better for a response. Or we could do, actually, let's keep it as view. Just so we'll initialize it first. And then the response can be the view, and then call the actual view like that. And then we need to put an else statement here. So I'm just checking to make sure that everything is okay. So yeah, so this is just going to look through all the routes here, whatever routes we've provided. It'll look through them all. It will compile them to a regular expression that can be matched, and then it will view, create a view for a view instance for whatever the view is. In this case, it's student view, and then it will call the view, get the response, and then send that response back to the server or back to the front controller. Okay, what we got here? I'm pretty sure it does. Let me see. Add routes. Route. Okay. Wow, that worked first time. That's pretty impressive. Okay. And so I didn't expect that. I was expecting some error message usually when you're doing stuff like this. So at the moment, this is working. But if we go somewhere else, then we'll get the 404 error. Anywhere else, we're gonna get 404. So the reason for this is because if there's no match, like if it goes through all of your routes and there's no match, then it will just send back a this 404 error. I'm just gonna make this error is a kind of don't. I want this to be able to be changeable later, so I'm not going to worry about it now. But if I was going to do this, if I was doing this properly, I'd want to make sure that this error view is not set by me. Like, I mean, right now. So if I want to change that later at the application level, I'd want to be able to call some method like just change. Set error response or something, and then actually be able to change the response like 404. What it actually looks like. But yeah, I won't worry about that right now. So what can do? So the first thing probably is to clean up these ugly routes that don't really tell us what they are, like a route position 0 and position 1. The reason being is because if you just an example, if I was making one application and I just I couldn't be bothered to put this in. Couldn't be bothered to say what my view was. Well, for a start, it's not even going to work like that. It needs to actually be a tuple. But it's going to straight away come up with a problem, because it's going to be like, well, it matches this. Oh no, it doesn't match that. Yeah, it's just coming. I think this is not actually to do with that problem, but let me see. I'm just checking to make sure where the actual issue is happening here. I might actually just keep this. I mean, usually you would just keep this as the name response. It's going to override the first response. So just if there's nothing, then it's just going to return the same response. So let me see if that works. Nope. Oh yeah, okay, that's what I was looking for. Tuple index is out of range, so when it's looking through here, the actual range of the tuple is it's out of range, so it's like you can't really do anything about that unless you set up loads of like validations for the tuple. So you'd want to keep any kind of validation things, you'd want to keep it out of the actual application. So it's better to create some kind of routes class, route. It's called a template. Like I saw, like the template is the regular expression that you're trying to match, so it's usually called a template. So I'm just going to call it template. We want to know what methods are accepted. We'll do let's just put none actually for now. And we want to know if there's any name. And what is the view? So the only things that are actually, the name and the method, actually not even the name, I'll take the name out for now, it's not necessary. Just the ones that are actually needed for right now are just the template, view, and then what methods are accepted. So, and even this one, we need to create some kind of default. So let me see, template, default methods equal. So this is going to be a list. Self dot template equals template. Actually, let's take a different approach to this. Let's set this to a protected variable and create a property decorator. Methods. Okay. I don't know. I'm still trying to work this out. I'm just thinking. So we're gonna have to do some kind of validation. So I think it's just for now. Just keep it simple. I have some ideas, but it's just mostly thinking on the spot. So. Self.method equals self.default. Okay, I think that's the best way to deal with it for right now. And then the next thing would be to create some kind of matcher so that this is not being done inside, like we're not actually matching stuff inside the dispatcher, because I think if you're doing too much, like everything, there shouldn't be like lots of things happening inside one, like everything should only have one responsibility. And so at the moment the dispatcher is doing quite a lot of different things. So all of this we kind of want to get out of here and just make it as simple as possible, and then let this, like the route itself, do all the hard work. So this is just going to take in a request object, and then it's just going to do pretty much this, but it doesn't need to do, but it's going to be a lot easier to match with its own methods, like whether it actually matches or not. So it'll just do if self.regex with request.path, then return self. Oh, return self? Oh yeah, return. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You could also do like a method as well, and make sure the methods, if self.regex is match and request.in self.methods. How many lines is that? Ooh, okay, that's acceptable. Yeah, so if it matches with this template, whatever the template is, and then if the request methods is in the self.methods, which we've set here as a default get, so if it's a get, then it will be okay. If not, for right now, we're not accepting any post methods, so it's not gonna deal with posts at the moment, at this moment in time. And we can now take out some of this stuff, and we'll be able to take out. I'm actually going to make an example in here first, so that I can actually use this inside the app. even though this is set, like the method is default set, if I want to change this later to handle like post request or whatever, so just an example, it will also handle post, but you know, right now it's not going to handle that right now, because obviously we're not handling anything. We're not even handling get requests or anything in here right now, so we're gonna have to change this completely in a second. Okay, so that one should be okay. Just gonna return self. So all we should be able to do now, what we should be able to do is if we do if, not match here, let's do match. Okay, let's try one more time. If route.match request actually, let's do a different one. If matched, yeah, okay. Route. Yeah, we don't need to use that matched variable, obviously, because it's just oh yes. Oh, seriously, sometimes I don't. We just need to return true, not the actual stuff. So if route.matched, then do route.view, which is called the view, the actual view. We can initialize it. View equals route.view with request and response. And the response can equal view and then call that. Okay, so hopefully this should work the same way, but obviously you can see it's a lot cleaner now. But I just need to check because obviously in not. Where is the in not? Is that in the front? Where is here? In not is not. Okay, so let me check this. Am I getting nothing? Is that right? Should I be getting nothing? Should be getting something. Okay, let's just check the other view. I'm getting nothing. Nada. Aha, I know why. Because I'm calling this resp. Okay. Okay, that one's still coming back as nothing, but that one's still coming back as nothing. Okay. So it's still not doing what I need to check whether it's actually going through this or not. So if route.match, it's not matching the okay, I can see kind of. Try this out. I'm not sure if this is going to fix it, but okay, methods. At least it's a new problem. Request.method. So there's no request.methods. So I need to change that here. So that's that one. hopefully that, at least we know it's going through the router now, so that's actually a good thing. And it's actually working. Okay, and let's try a nonsensical, and we're back to where we are. Okay, so that's kind of obviously whenever you're doing this, is you need to try to get back to where you were. So you change something and then try and get back to actually the same behavior. So in this case, we're doing okay. But the good thing is right now is that we can change something, and everything in the program is changed along with it. So we actually need to create some. Hang on, I'm gonna actually open up something that I've done in the past, because this is quite difficult to remember sometimes. So we need to create a different view, because the view is it's not very usable at the moment. It's not very reusable at this moment. Let me see. View. Okay, so we're going to do something like this. Where's the views? View. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we're in the view. So I'm actually going to create a call method. Which is going to have nothing, and it's going to just change the request to a local variable, so we don't keep calling request like local to this method. And then if request, okay, not that, okay, method equals get method dot. I'll explain this when I'm done. It's a little bit. You have to write. This has to be right, otherwise it's not gonna. Okay, I think that will work. For now, anyway. We do a try. I'm gonna use a try just in case something doesn't work. So this is gonna have a try except method. It's not 404. What would it be? Not implemented? I think it's 500 error. 500 not implemented. Okay, just pass for now. Ah, but you can't pass it. Okay, just return response. Seems like we need to return this. I'm just okay. I think I'm missing my, oh, here it is. Okay, so that's still okay. And that's still okay. So yeah, nothing's really changed because I'm not actually using this view call method because I'm overriding this with this call method here. So I actually want to change this. So I want to use now the view because I'm inheriting from the view, so I want to use the views call method and only use the method that I'm looking for, which is get, and self.response.write. This is the new student view. So I'm not sure if we need to return this yet. This is kind of I need to figure this out step by step. Okay, so we got an error here. So what have we got here? Response object in the front controller is not callable. Okay. Okay, I think I know what's going on here. So the response is going to equal method, and then we're going to return the response here. Or, actually, let me think. Should we return the response method or the actual response? Kind of it's a little bit tricky because it's the point, like at some point where it's quite crucial that you make the right decision. So at the moment we have like a self.response and a self.request object for each of the views. So at the moment it's going to, actually there's only one view, but at the moment if we send back the response to the dispatcher, is here, we're calling the call method, which is this one here, this call method, and then it's going to send back, at the moment it's returning the response, but that means that this where are we in the app, when we call self.response.write, it's writing to that like self.response object, like what's actually inside here, like this self.response. So we need to return the self.response as an object. So we just need to call the method. Okay, so call the method if it's there. Yeah, I think that maybe that will maybe work, but then so we're returning an object, so just make sure that's actually an object. Yeah, okay, I think that should work. Let me see. Let me see. Yes, that does work, which is cool. Okay, so that's that one, and let's do error. Just make sure the error is not okay. The error is still working, and we're starting to clean things up now, so it's definitely looking a lot better. Okay, so we've got the route matching. Dispatch is dispatching. The only thing that's actually the one thing that's not happening right now is, it's not like a huge thing, but when there's a match here, if a self.regex.match, we need to make sure that yeah, I think we need to create some kind of variable here. So let's do this one first. So if match equals true, and then we need to set the self.url vars to equal match.group. I need to test this out in a second, but what this will do is obviously, like, especially if we're making any kind of like a proper application that has an API or anything, then we need to make sure that it has like it can respond to like a user. If you put like a user's ID or like a post ID or something, if you put that in the URL, then you need to be able to get that out of the URL. So this will actually match that if you implement it correctly. Just to test it out, if we go to our thing here, if we do like a student, I always forget if it's $P or $P. We'll soon find out. Oh. I think it's that one, isn't it? Yeah, let's try that first. Yeah, so this is going to look for a student and then match its ID, the student's ID, with something. So this only just a test, so I'm just seeing if this actually works first. So this is done in the routes. So self.url vars, and then this needs to be checked in the when we call the method. Before we call the method, okay, let's do this here first. It's gonna get messy if we do it there. Okay, method. At some point in time, we need to, because at the moment the view has no access to the route variables. It has access to requests, but not to the route variables. So there is some. I saw something before about how you can update at least the URL vars. In the request, because remember, this is a web object, so there's kind of a. So I'm trying to talk while I'm thinking. As no one's asking any questions, I'm not sure if anyone's actually. I don't know if people are actually like. You don't care too much or you understand everything. So I'm not sure which one it is. Okay, there's an idea here from Ian Bicking's do-it-yourself framework. He has a lot of good ideas for things like this. So I think this kind of implementation, if we use the request object that was sent, the WebObs request object, I think it has a variable for the object has a variable for URL vars, so I can set that in the request, but then I have to return the request as well. It's a little tricky, which I do. I think you can also put the, okay, I'm going to try something, and then if it doesn't work, then I'll try something else. It's kind of the, so at the moment, so what we got for the route.match, so the route, we want to put the route inside the request. If there is a route, request.route equals route. So this might work or it might not work. If it doesn't work, then I have another idea. We should better access this through this request object now, maybe. Equal request dot your route dot URL vars. I think I handled this better. I handled this in another one of my projects. I'm just checking again. Okay, let's try this. It may work or it may not work. We will see. Only time will tell. Okay, that's still giving us an error. And now we have a new student ID 56. Okay. It's coming back with 404. So that means it's not matching, which means that I think it might be wrong. Let me see. That the actual implementation might be wrong. Aha. Yeah, I thought this was probably what was it. I put this the wrong way around. But I'm still getting 404 error. Let me see. What am I doing wrong? So the ID, that's okay. Okay, let's try this. So I'm not that great at regular expressions, so I always have to check out documentation to see. Okay, so now we've just got an error, which is good. An error is not bad. Actually means this worked, which is good. So we've got ID equals none. For student. Student ID equals ID. It's not good. I don't want to override the ID, but it's just for a test, so can I make this shorter? I don't want to. Okay, just put it like that for now. It's very ugly. Okay, so we're onto something now. Okay, so and if I leave it blank, we got a page not found, which is good. That's what we're supposed to do. Oh, that's a big. There's a lot of students. I wish there was that many students. Okay. I'm not really sure. I'm just going to change this to a get. I'm actually going to take that out for now, just to make sure the default's working. Oh, okay, that's good. If match is okay, and request.method in self.methods, and none type is iterable. That was in the views, wasn't it? Oh, was in the views? Router or route, yeah, route. Where are you? Oh, route, yeah, yeah. So if it's none, then set to methods. This interesting. Let me see. So to the student view. I'm not 100% sure why this is happening. The route here, if methods is none, not none. Sorry. Okay. If methods is none, then set to default. If it else, okay. Sometimes it's just logic, but okay, that's working. It's a good thing you check things like that. Like, obviously you should have tests that test those kinds of things, but even just if you're just testing your application manually, it's good to try and break your application. Like, not try and use it as it's supposed to be used. Like, you treat it like as if you're some mad kid with some new toy and just, throw it around and trash it and do whatever you can with it to try and make it try and break it, because that's what other people are going to be doing. Is they're going to be using your application in just your software in weird ways. So if you gave this framework to somebody, I'm saying generally if you're just using it for yourself, then you can fix your own errors. But if somebody else uses your framework that you've made, then you need to make sure that it's ready for anything. But as this is what I was saying before about, like, you could use other frameworks, like you can use Django or whatever, but obviously once this is set up, this takes a while to set up, I agree, but once this is set up, then the case of making an application is now this. Like, that's it. That's the entire application right here. Like, once you've added in some you make a response write method for rendering like a Jinja. Then you can start using templating. Then you can add in your database. You can create something for your configs, configuration files, and that's like the most part of a framework. Then you can create like a front controller that actually. I'm actually thinking about how to change this to. I'm still thinking, because I want to make this front controller a bit more like a reusable, so that you can change the actual behavior of this. I'm still kind of thinking about making a more controller specific front controller, because right now like I can add stuff to this, but it's very specific to whatever this front controller is supposed to do for this application or for this type of application, then that's what it's going to do. But you want the front controller to be able to be adapted to any kind of application that you're making, so that actually, if you want it to be a more secure application, if it needs to be very, very secure, then having a front controller that's very secure is important, because you can actually change how the security is handled. You can handle like as soon as the request comes in, what do you do with that request? Like you're checking to see if like if the user is there, if that the user's logged in. All of that can be handled by the front controller, because it's kind of like a bottleneck. Like this application works like a bottleneck. Everything comes in, it has to come in here, and as soon as it comes in here, you do all of your application level checking, and then you send it off to the views. Then the views can do their own, mini checking to, for that specific view. And then when it sends back, you can check again to make sure that that information is correct in the front controller. You'd be like, okay, is this containing like what it's supposed to contain? Is it secure? And then if it is, then send it on. It's not that difficult to then, make it secure. Like everyone talks about Django like it's like some amazing feat of like like some really, really secure application, but I don't really understand how it can be secure as people say it is, when so many people have like added things to it. And then the people who use it, like when it's only as secure as you make it, like, yeah, it's like out of the box is pretty secure, but it's still only if you like, it's only really like a few things that it actually does. It doesn't, it only, it checks like the S, I can't even remember what it is now, CSRF. Let me check it. Yeah, CSRF. Yeah, it checks the it's a little bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? CSRF token. Like it checks that for like when you're posting things, and obviously it does a few like different checks and stuff. But I think like that's within like a application designers like it's within their ability to be able to make that. It's not that difficult. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else I can really do with this right now without going into too much more detail. But if all of this stuff here, like dispatcher, front controller, response, route, server, not the server, sorry, the view, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These files, I would want to put these inside a different file, which I am actually going to do just to separate out. So if I call this like core or something, like this, the core of this application, this is stuff that shouldn't change, that can just be used over and over again for different applications. So let me just see. I'm going to close this down for a sec. Move this over here. I don't want everyone looking at my stuff. Okay, front controller. Okay, here we go. So this is out what the file looks like right now. So I'm going to close down the server. Should have done that first. Make a new folder called core. Yeah, I don't have any I don't have anything on there, but it's just quite embarrassing. I don't It's like giving a glimpse into your life, isn't it? I don't know. Um, 2, 3 views. 5. Okay, let's put the core in there. Put this in the core, and obviously we're going to need an init file inside here, so just gonna cd into core, touch. Make sure that's in there. Yep. Okay, so now this is inside the core file. This core file can be, reused. It's just got a few things in there that, if you have any problems or you want to add more things, then you can add things to the core of your application. The core of the framework, but everything else is just these 2 files: the server and then the app. And then we only need to change the app. And if I go back to solo.py, just need to do core dot and core dot. And okay, so it's not 100% working. So we need to, in the core, I know we need to do dot. Actually, to make this compatible, I should put this as core, not just dot. I should use the name, maybe, I think. Okay, that's not calling anything. That's not calling anything. That's not calling anything. Is that gonna work? Yeah. And it still works. And hopefully the errors still work. Yeah, so everything's now refactored into this core folder. That's the core of your application, and then everything else. So then this is what I was talking about before, about making sure that everyone knows what kind of the application this is. So if I was making like a example, well, like this, like a student viewer folder, student viewer application, then this should all be in the front. Like everyone should better see like what kind of application this is. Just looking at the front, they'd be like, oh, okay, there's like student models here, and like just looking at the front of my application, they better see everything. And then the core is like hidden away behind here. Like this is not important. This is all over here. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool, if I do say so. But yeah, but all of this is like a very straightforward. I think once you've created the actual framework, everything else is pretty straightforward. So I think that's gonna be me for today. I hope, at least, I've been rambling for a long time, but I hope at least like you can learn a few things from this and just see like at least how to build something from scratch. And then I've only used one third-party thing here. I used one what was it? One of them. If I do pip freeze, it was something, I can't remember what I used. WebOb, yeah. So I've used one third-party application that was a WebOb, and I used that for the request, and everything else is just completely, that's all Python. Like everything else is just raw, straight up Python. So it's still it's even possible that you don't even need to use the WebOb if you were good enough at like if you knew how to deal with requests and stuff. It's just obviously an extra thing, but if you actually create like a request object yourself, you can reasonably deal with it. Like it's not that difficult, but it's just safer to let the professionals do it, I guess. if that, I mean, safer, but like better for your application if you don't have to deal with stuff that you don't know about. Yeah, if you don't know a lot about HTTP response and requests, it's better just to deal with it as minimally as you can, and then just let third party deal with it, or learn about it and then you can deal with it yourself. So it makes you a bit more well-rounded, I guess. So yeah, this is like, if you want to check out, like, just see where this came from. Well, this whole concept came from was from here. This if you check out my Python design patterns, so you got the front controller pattern, and this basically is where I came up with the formulated the ideas. It's obviously from different places, not only from this, but the concept of it just came completely from the front controller pattern, which can then be used in any kind of pattern like MVC or anything else you want to use. You can. So yeah, I hope this was useful. I'm probably going to be using this going forward, so probably in my next videos or anything else I make from now on, we'll use this front controller, and anything that I need I'll add to it and then build this up as I go along. I want to make this student app. I'll probably change this front controller file and then actually make a student app for my students later. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully see you around. Peace out. Maybe.